Your mind is a faithful dog. It will chase any stick you throw.
Topaz Adizes. Today we're talking to an Emmy award-winning writer, director, Edmund Hillary Fellow. And you are right now on a mission to create powerful human interactions in the digital age.
I don't know even if I like humans. We do some terrible things, but I love humanity. And what is humanity? Humanity is not what's in us, it's what's between us. If you see yourself in a negative mode, beating yourself up, you're asking a disempowering question. Should I fire this person? Should we launch the product or not? Should I leave my job and start a startup? Okay, wait, change the question. Create a better, more specific, constructive question, and then the answer becomes obvious.
How do you create the questions that actually start creating results?
There are 3 exercises you can do. Let's start with number 1.
I mean, how did this become a calling? Like, how did you get started, Topaz?
I got started in my parents' divorce as a 4-year-old.
Wow,
I got
tell me
started
more.
feeling disconnected from the 2 people I love the most and who did not seem to find a way to connect. And I mean, if that's where you want to know, like that's where this pain became hunger. And then in my 20s, I studied philosophy and was trying to find how I can contribute. And I was really interested in cinema and a camera and talking to people, right? To ask questions, to have conversations, to feel a sense of connection to other people. And I would think, yeah, it's because when you're a kid and your parents get divorced and your world falls apart and you're looking for that sense of connection, that was my experience for me. And so then here I am in my 20s with a camera, and I realized the camera is a bridge. It's a door opener. You show up to someone with a camera and you ask a question. In some sense, there's pause for thought there, and they know why you're, in some sense, it gives you a door opener. It's a bridge.
Yeah.
And so that was, and so I, became a filmmaker for 15, 20 years. And then the last 10, 11 years with my experience design studio called The Skin Deep, I'm really interested in how the emotional experience of being human is shifting. And that's what my team and I have been exploring for the last 10, 11 years.
And that's incredible. And I want to talk about the Skin Deep and in the end, which is, but let me take you back in time for a second, Topaz.
Right.
And thank you for sharing, dealing with parents' divorce and my divorce in my teenhood. Talk to me a little bit about what came about, because again, it probably didn't process enough, or you felt you didn't talk to them enough. Like, tell me what came to you there, and why did that become such a big motivator for you to open these conversations and to figure out the real truth now?
I mean, I think for me, it's just, I don't know, the makeup of my personality along with that experience of a feeling of lack of connection. So I went in the opposite direction. I searched for connection. I searched for intimacy. And, in my 20s and 30s, as I was exploring my own romantic relationships, I could feel the reverberations of the divorce in my own patterns, in my own way of how did I circumnavigate around people emotionally. And I'm talking about the intimacy. And I think in 2014, when you looked around the world at the time and you saw how technology was shifting so much, politics, it was shifting the financial currencies with cryptos coming out, and no one was really, and dating, I mean, people using dating apps, and it was really coming. And I was single at the time in New York, and I just saw how technology was shifting the way we were relating to one another. But at the core, like if we go to the seed, I believe for me, at least in the current understanding of my life and the current vantage point of looking back, is a sense of disconnection as a young child, trying to make sense of this huge world. And I think that there's a book that I read was super helpful for me. I don't remember the author, but it's The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce. And it was super helpful for me because the underlying idea is that for those children who are, the children of divorced families, in the back of your mind, you have this sense that everything will end. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a part like romantic or even a work partnership, you assume it will end. So whenever you're in a relationship, of any kind, you're, in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, how's this going to end? And if you ask the question, how's this going to end? Well, there's a multiple ways that it can end. But in the book, it says, for those who do not come from divorce, the families, they don't have that conception of the world. Things don't necessarily have to crumble and fall apart, right? And I think that is one effect that I saw as a lingering effect from that childhood, is that for many of my 20s and 30s in relationships, it was always like, how's this going to end? So that doesn't bode well for the longevity of a relationship when you're looking at about how it's going to end, because really you're trying to just protect yourself, right? But if you're protecting yourself, you also can't necessarily extend beyond the reaches of the wall that's protecting you. So you're limited in the emotional experience you can have because you are protecting yourself. You are both protected by the walls, but you're also captive to the walls that protect you.
And that's fascinating, Topaz, because I was exactly there. I was exactly in my 20s, all the way, until I found my husband now. I was exactly this. I would push people aside, and in a way, because I knew that I'm basically shielding myself from that potential separation. So it's incredible to hear you now.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not a therapist, and my experience comes from really being very curious of human nature and being able to create spaces where one can have a real experience. And in this sense of where I've been honored and privileged to be in the space. My team and I haven't been in all 1,200, but my team and I have been in holding the space for over 1,200 conversations of all kinds of relationships in about 10 countries. And that is where I come to you now with my experience, not only my life experience, but obviously, how many people get to really see that many conversations between people in a real intimate way, and even if you think about therapists get to see a lot of conversations, but therapists are part of the conversation. They're guides within the conversation. If it's a couples therapy or whatnot, they're asking questions, they're guiding. Here, I pose the questions, you sit back, and the participants are having a conversation, and we witness that. And that's a really honored place to be in. And there's a lot of learning and illumination that comes up inevitably from being in that privileged position.
And I want to take you there. So for I guess for this reason, but I want to go there a little deeper, right? In 2015, if I'm not mistaken, you produced the documentary The End, and which honestly grew to become this like viral sensation experienced by over 150 million people. Why do you believe this turned into such a success? And how did you have the guts to say, this is what I want to do?
So why did it become a success? Why did it become a viral success? Why did it speak to people? Because people in a digital world, they needed a sense of humanity. And we are the corner of the internet where you can get a digital dose of humanity. And the question is, what was this guy talking about? What is humanity? I don't know even if I like humans, to be honest. We do some terrible things. But I love humanity. And what is humanity? Humanity is not what's in us, it's what's between us. So how do you cultivate it? And I feel humanity when do you feel humanity in your life? When you have that incredibly intimate conversation with a total stranger, like we used to before phones, and you're walking on the street, or with the taxi cab driver before we were all lost in our phones, or in the elevator or in the airplane, or in that random moment where you had this conversation with someone and you sense a greater sense of us, whatever that means. You're not alone, and you get a sense of this connection to humanity. Or you're in a sports team and you're all striving for the goal, and you win or you lose, and you sense this sense of connection, coherence with other people, right? Or you're in the business team and you're struggling to hit a quota or something, or to get the product out in time, or to make an incredible video game, whatever it is, and you succeed, and you look at each other in the trenches. There's that sense of connection, that there's something that we're doing together that we can't do alone. That's like a sense of humanity. Or in your relationship, you get in a big fight with your partner. You don't even want to talk to them, and you explode, and you have a conversation. And at the end of it, you come back together and you sense, you know what, we're stronger. I'm not alone in this journey of life. That sense, this sentiment of coherence, resonance with other people because you're on a common journey, You're sharing an experience, albeit unique to each one of us. That's what humanity is to me, and I love it. It gives me a sense
Right.
of greater amplification of what it means to be alive. And so that drew my interest into the and, which was, what's the and? The and is about the space between, because a relationship is not you or I, us or them. It's you and I, us and them. It's the and that connects us. It's the and where humanity lives. So how do we cultivate that? How do we illuminate that? And that's what we've been able to do with the and, because we bring people to a room, put them facing each other. We film it with 3 cameras. And for anyone listening, just go check us out on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, wherever, and you'll see moments where people are faced, and we show you both their faces at the same time. And that's what's important. It's both faces at the same time. And we can talk about why that's important, because very little footage these days of any type of media content, you never see both the speaker and the listener at the same time. You see, here we are showing you both, because we're saying it's not just the listener that's as important as the speaker. It's both. Because everything we watch is just the speaker. You always see the person speaking. Anyhow, long story short, that's the and. And to me, that cultivates the thing I love so much, which is humanity. And the privileged position I've had from watching that is, I've over 1,200 data points, 1,250 data points over 11 years now, is how do you create the space to have these type of conversations that illuminate our shared humanity?
So talk to us about this space, because I think, again, you're going to have hard conversation or crucial conversations everywhere you go. You're going to have it with your bosses, with your peers, with loved ones, with partners, with kids.
Right.
What makes the space?
Well, definitely what makes space. Before we go there, I just want to frame it. It's not that it's about having hard conversations. I would suggest a formula like this. And you hear Esther Perel, who's, the incredible thought leader in the space of relationships. She says, the quality of your life is commensurate to the quality of your relationships. Right? The more quality relationships you have, the more the quality of your life. Okay, if we believe that's true, great. I believe it's true. Let's say that's true. Well, then what makes a quality relationship? And one way to build and to cultivate a quality relationship is quality conversations. So one suggestion is quality. There's acts of service. But one of them is quality conversations. We're humans, and we have the gift that we have language. We can communicate these ideas and these feelings and communicate to another soul, to another heart, and share that and communicate. We can communicate. We can have conversations. It's great. So what makes great conversations?
For you, it's questions.
No, it's quality questions.
Right?
Exactly. It's quality, and it is the space in which you hold those quality questions. That's it. If you create the space, and we can talk about what that means, and we construct really quality questions, we can have incredible conversations. If we have incredible conversations, we have incredible relationships. If we have incredible relationships, we can have an incredible life.
So talk to us more about these questions. And you have a full book on that. But talk to us a little bit about these questions, because I think it's so important. People don't know what to ask and how to go there.
I mean, look, if we want something tactical right here, take home value, if you're looking to have a conversation where you're exploring the grave, you're exploring your relationship, don't ask a binary question. And if you begin a question with is, are, do, should, I don't care what comes after those words. If you start anything with is, are, do, or should, it is a binary question. Is this the thing we should do? Are you in love with me? Do you love me? Do you think we're happy? Should we do that? Yes, no, done. Left, right. So you don't even have to tell me the question. Just tell me what the first word of the question is. Versus why, how, what, or in what way. You start that, you cannot give a binary response. You can't answer, why do you love me with yes or no? You could say, I just do. That works. But what I'm saying is that the invitation begins with the question, and the big question even begins with the first word of the question. And we are not taught in our society how to build good questions. I was just listening to a podcast with Elon Musk where he says, oh yeah, sometimes we are racing ahead. Sometimes we're answering the right question, The right, of course, many times we answer the right answer. We find the right answer to the wrong question. We spend so much time on the answer, we don't spend time exploring the question. And much like a race is shaped by the race course that it's run on, our answers are shaped by the questions we ask. And we do not bring enough attention to the questions we ask in every facet, whether it's your business, whether it's how you speak to yourself or how you speak to your children or how you speak to your partner. Like we don't pay attention to the questions we ask. And that is where 80% of the power lies.
Oof, that's strong.
And we can break that down too. Yeah.
And I probably want you to tell me about one of those maybe hard conversations. And you don't call them hard, you call them good, deep conversations.
Oh, they can be hard for sure.
But they can be hard, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit about a hard conversation that you either witnessed or been part of that shaped your understanding that you need to I mean, it's a muscle that you need to build. And we're not born with that muscle. We're not taught this muscle.
I mean,
can you share a moment?
When you ask that question, can I share a moment that's informed? Are you asking me?
Or a hard conversation
that's informed me that I've learned from, that I've had to have? Yeah. Well, working startup. I know you talk a lot about startups and your own startup and other people and supporting them and coaching them in their own career paths. So when I started the Skin Deep 11 years ago, it was very scary. There was a lot that I didn't know. I remember speaking to the lawyer who was very expensive because my investor suggested I get a very good, expensive lawyer because when we do exit, we'll want a good lawyer. And I was paying a lot for this gentleman's time. And I remember getting on the phone with him. He said, Topaz, you're asking me these questions. Are you going to pay me $500 to answer this question? Or are you going to go Google and learn it yourself? Where do you want to spend your money? Where do you want to spend your time? It's like, wow, great. I remember the day one, I took a selfie of me and my two team members. At that time was Paige and Heron. And I took a picture, a selfie, and I remember telling myself, remember this image because you are scared shitless right now. But we all know you're smiling because you're like the leader of the startup and you're not gonna show that you're scared shitless. But I took a selfie, I can show it to you, where I benchmarked that moment and say, this is awesome. I am going to photograph this moment knowing that inside this smile, behind this whatever face I'm posing, I am shitting myself because I don't know what I'm doing. And not only that, but I've taken on my friends and families and investors' money. And so in that process, I remember early on in like 1, 2, 3 years, there would be times you have a small team, 5, 6, 7 people, and you could feel a tension with somebody on your team, right? And you don't want to talk to them. You don't want to have to go in and lean into that uncomfortable conversation, and I just learned over time that the longer I didn't have that conversation with them, the more uncomfortable the relationship would become, the less flexible and capable we would be able to perform together as a team because our relationship was strained. I just saw it as a, like the sinews in your body, like the muscles and the ligaments in your body. If you don't stretch them, they become cartilaged. They become stiff. And then and then what happens? You don't want to rub it. You don't want to stretch. Why? Because it hurts. Of course not. But the longer you don't, the more stiff it becomes. So that ultimately you can't move, right? So you're there and figuratively, and you have a cramp in your leg, you're in pain, you can't move because you haven't stretched for a month, you haven't dealt with the conflict. So that ultimately you have to deal with it. It's even more painful. And I realized, oh my gosh, when that comes up, approach it. Have the conversation. Now, of course, many of us don't approach it because we don't have the tools. Right. We don't know. And we could talk about that. The tools are create the space. And we can talk about what that means, construct good questions. But the point is, I learned from hard conversations of startup years that initially I didn't want to have them. And if I didn't have them, the longer they festered, the more painful they would be later.
And that is so, so, so important to pause. I actually do want to drill a little bit into this because the audience will actually find themselves in, again, either they need to talk to their boss or their peers or to employees or whatever it is. And it is scary. And then you start pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And just amplifies the problem, like you said, right? It's not going to get better. So Topaz, what do you say to people? How do you create, again, the space, and how do you create the questions that actually start creating results?
Okay, so first, let's create a scenario, whatever it is, let's create a scenario where you have to go and let somebody off. You have to let them go. Okay, so stop there for a sec. First of all, what's the question you're asking yourself? You wake up, you know you have that 10 o'clock meeting, and you're probably saying, oh shit, I got to do that. Oh my God. Gee, I can't wait for that to be over. I can't wait for it to be, that line, I can't wait for it to be over, is actually an answer to a question you're asking yourself. What am I not looking forward to today? That, I can't wait for it to be over. You are asking yourself a question all the time. So stop right there, even before speaking to another person. Change the question you're asking yourself. How can I make this conversation the most usable or empowering for them and for me? How can I take this moment to actually develop a stronger relationship with this other person on the other end that I'm letting go today? Everything, ask a different question. If you see yourself in a negative mode, beating yourself up, you're asking an disempowering question. Because remember, your mind is a faithful dog. It will chase any stick you throw, and it doesn't care where you throw it. If you throw the stick into the mud, it will chase after the mud. If you throw up on a beautiful vista, it'll run up on the vista and look at the view, wherever you throw the stick. So if you say, what's the shitty stuff I have to do today? Great. The faithful dog will chase that stick. I'll tell you all the shitty things you have to do today. No problem. Faithful dog. But if you say, in the challenging day that I have, where I have a bunch of things on my list I don't want to do, where's the beautiful moment that will change me forever? What is the moment, the 5 minutes I can cherish the most? Okay, you just threw the stick in a different direction. And your dog will go find it. Your mind will go find it. So, train your dog. You can't tell, the dog goes where you throw the stick. So throw the stick in beautiful places. What does that mean? Ask good questions of yourself. So you're going to that meeting, instead of saying, oh shit, how am I going to get through this or what? No. How can I make the most of this? And then, okay, so now that's asking yourself, that already changes your perspective on the whole experience because your mind is already coming with solutions.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you go into the space. Number one is before you even ask questions, we have to create the space. Right? What do I mean by that? Look, you don't sleep in the kitchen and you don't cook in the bedroom. You do certain things in certain places. Right?
Right.
Do we do that in our meetings at work? Do we hey, this is this kind of meeting? This is this kind of meeting? Do we create the space where we understand, oh, this is the behavior that is conducive to the space we're in? Right? We're setting expectations. So when you create the space so that people understand what is expected of them or what is allowed of them, or more importantly, you're basically giving them permission to be and they know what is it. Then you're basically creating boundaries, right? You're creating a space. And in that space, people can feel safe, albeit, let's not be confused with safety and comfort. You're creating a space where people feel safe, but not necessarily comfortable. Let's not confuse comfort and safety. Right. Safety is one thing, but comfort, the best place to be, frankly, is in a safe place where you are uncomfortable. Because then you're growing, It's like, if I go bungee jumping, I'm definitely going to be safe. Well, because I'm choosing the right vendor who's got the right bungee cord. And in theory, I'm safe. I'm not going to hit the ground because they know what they're doing. So in theory, I'm safe. But I'm definitely uncomfortable because I'm jumping off a cliff or I'm jumping off the bridge.
Absolutely.
Right? But I'm going to have an incredible experience. I'm going to feel more fulfilled. I'm going to come out going, wow, that was amazing. Okay. But it's a safe place where I'm uncomfortable. The same thing happens in your relationships. The same thing happens in work. So creating a safe space is important. And what that means is, A, you create the boundaries. They understand what you're giving permission for people. This is what happens in this space. And also you're outlaying an intention. An intention is different than an agenda. An agenda is where you end up. An intention is where you begin.
Ooh, powerful. Tell me more.
Well, okay, if you come to a meeting and say, guys, because many of our, and just a little bit not to be confused with like an agenda for a meeting. Well, an agenda for a meeting generally is, we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about this, then we're going to talk about that, then we're going to talk about this. And ultimately you're saying like, we're talking about these things. You're basically giving them like, these are the guideposts
Items.
the items we're going to hit.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is when we talk about each of those items, what is, are you saying, team, the agenda is, I want you all to agree that this is the right decision. So you think about it. You bring your direct reports into a room, or you go into a room to your who is above you or whatever. And, do they already know what they're going to do, and you know what they're going to do, and they're just here so that they feel good about telling you what they're going to do? Or do they really want your opinion? And are we just here because they want us to get to where they want us to be, and you feel it, so you're not really showing up? Right?
That's the intention.
Or you as the boss, you come in and you don't really, are you really interested in what everyone else has to say, or you just want them to buy in and you're just playing the game so that they buy in because you're already there?
Right.
That's an agenda. You know how it's going to end up. The intention is, okay, you show up and go, guys, we need to make a decision. I have a supposition about the decision, but I need everyone here's buy-in and understanding, and I could be wrong. Or I need to know if we're really right or if we tweak it. My intention is that we'll come up with a solution. Exactly what the solution is, I don't know. Now, you come from that space, it's an invitation for people to step in. An agenda is they feel like this is not an invitation to step in, this is an agenda, this is an invitation to play chess. Political chess, emotional stat, whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
It's much like, yeah.
No, this is brilliant. So for me, there's two things that come up here when we're talking about this. So first of all, it feels like a little bit of a muscle when you wake up in the morning and you feel, shitty. There's a lot of crap going on, right? Like, how do you train yourself to ask better questions? Because your instinct is about, oh, darn, I need to go through Your brain doesn't necessarily go to empowering questions, right?
Sure.
Like, so how first of all, do you build that muscle to start thinking about more, smarter questions, better questions? Take me more.
So first, noting that it's a muscle. So that's great, because what you practice at, you get good. So wonderful. That's great, because this is not like a talent thing. It's actually a practice of a muscle. So great. Okay, so then you can get good at this. Then two, how do we practice it? Great. Well, there's many ways, right? I mean, you can put the Post-it notes on your door, the window when you brush your teeth in the mirror in the morning. Okay, that's one way. You could have the little rubber band on your forearm, so you snap it and you snap yourself every time you're thinking a negative thought and change the question. I mean, you can get a tattoo that has a question. I mean, you could do a lot of things, right? The idea is, are you conscientious of it? That's number one. Oh, great. So now when we find ourselves going down that road, stop, turn back. I was just listening to listen to a podcast where they say, was it yours? It might have been yours with that incredible guy with the incredible voice, Brian Tracy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Not sure if it was his or I'm taking a lot of interviews and everything. But anyways, I'm sorry, this sidetracking. But just okay. That, the quickest path to be getting on the right path is when you realize you're on the wrong path and you turn around.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you're conscientious that you're doing it is number one. And you take a pause and then you turn around and you go back on the right path, whatever the right path is. But what I'm saying is that it's a muscle. So you practice it. Right. Great. I can get good at this. Two, if I'm aware of it, then when I find myself happening it, then I can pause, turn around and move forward or going back in right? And I think that's it. Like the rubber band, the notes, just being aware of it. When you find yourself banging your head against the wall, it's because you're trying to answer a question. It's really difficult to answer. Don't stop banging your head against the wall trying to answer that question. Change the question. You're not asking a really good question. When you ask a really well-constructed question, the answer is much more obvious and fluid and easeful. And we could talk about what that means, but I repeat, if you find yourself banging your head, should I break up with this person? Should I fire this person? Should I hire that person? Should we launch the product or not? Should I leave my job and start a startup? And you're banging, I don't know. Okay, wait, change the question. Create a better, more specific, constructive question, and then the answer becomes obvious.
Let's go there, Topaz.
Okay.
Because I think that's really, really interesting. And by the way, you have a full book about 12 questions for love.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how do you construct better questions? Because I think we all want to, but we sometimes have no clue.
Sure. So are you asking in the context of a relationship with someone else, or are you asking in the context of what the questions I ask myself? Because there's different tools for the different ones.
Okay, so let's start with ourselves, and then let's talk about relationship. I think both of them are very interesting for us.
Okay, so if you're asking yourself a question, and it's not working, as I just mentioned, right? There are 3 exercises you can do. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 is, I want you to brainstorm 30 other kind of questions. And this is how you construct the questions. Here is the take-home value, if you're listening, because people don't talk about this. At least it seems that no one talks about it, because when I talk about it, they go, oh, that really helps. Number 1, you have 3.
I'm literally writing.
Yeah. You have 3 gaps. You have 3 blanks. Okay? You're going to have 3 fill in the blanks for every question. And you're going to come up with 30 of them. The first fill in the blank is time frame. What in the next 3 years? What in the next 3 months? What in the next week? What in the next 6 weeks? What in the next chapter? It has to have a time frame. Okay? That's the first blank. The second blank is, how does it make me feel? How does it affect me? Right? That it makes me feel inspired, that it scares the shit out of me, that it's going to put me in a better financial position so I feel stable, that I'm going to learn something I've never learned before, that I'm going to be able to have the sense of teaching, whatever it is. Second blank is how it makes you feel. The third one is how it affects others. Okay? How so that I can support my community, such that I can reinforce my relationship with my wife, or be more intimate with my kids, so that I can support my parents who are sick, so that I can be a pillar of my community, such that I can tackle the problems in my world that I think are important, whatever it is. You have 3 blanks and you create 30 questions. You just brainstorm, right? Then you look at that list and you circle the one that gives you the most energy and inspiration, the one that you're like, that's the one that on this finite time that I have on this planet as a human being, for right now, that's the one I really want to answer.
Amazing.
You circle that one. And then the answers are obvious. Let me give a really simple example. Okay? Just for the sake of like keeping it simple, is like, because God knows I'm talking so much. It's like, should I break up with her? Should I break up with him? Should I break up with they? Whatever. Should I break up with this person? I don't know. Yes, no, Okay, stop. Come up with 30 questions. And let's say you circle the one that you really like. Like, what in the next 2 years can I do so that I feel like I'm growing and challenging myself such that I'm in a position to have a family life and offer and be a, family life with my ideal partner. Okay, you circle that one. Now go, does this person fit into that question? Yes, absolutely. Like, I'm comfortable and I want to be with them. And even though it's like, I do think that this is okay, or no, not at all. They don't fit the family life. So no, they're out. See, it's like, change the question, deepen the question, time frame, how it makes you feel, how it makes other people's feel. And then the answer becomes obvious. And the reason that we have a time frame is because life is finite. It doesn't go on forever. You change, things change. Where do we want to live? Well, where you want to live without kids or single is different with kids. It's different when the kids are 15. It's different when the kids are out of the house. It's different when you're now 70 or when you're not. So it changes. So give it a time frame. How it makes you feel is important because it gives you energy, right? And how it makes other people feel is because we are humans. We're in relationship. We're in community. If it's just about me, it's going to get A, narcissistic, and B, it's going to burn out, right? You're just not, you're doing it all for yourself. There's no the energy is not resilient because it's not being recycled through other people. It's of value to other people. So you do that, circle it, and then that's one huge tool. And then there's two others.
Brilliant.
One is feedback loops, question loops. They're not feedback loops, they're question loops. So the most famous question loop is why? Da 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 da. Why? Da 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 da. Why? And you just keep asking the question, why? Okay. Should I quit my job? Why? Well, because I'm not feeling so much about it and I'm not sure why. Because, I feel like wasting my time, albeit it's supportive. Why? And you just keep saying why. There's other question loops that you can ask, right? Like, I haven't done this in a while, but this one I have is like, this goes something like, why? What if you already have it? Well, no, it's like, it goes, why? Then you go, well, because this. What would it give you? What would give me this? What if you already have it? Well, if I have it, I have it here. Why? What would it give you? What if I already have it? Why? And you loop that and see where you go. There's a bunch of question loops you can, yeah. And then the last one, which is a plug for myself, is one of my additions is, these boxes of 200 questions that we sell in all kind of relationships. One of them is a self deck, questions to ask yourself. So you list out the question, the big question you're asking, the enigma, the challenge you're facing. Then you randomly pull out questions that I ask, and you answer those in relation to the big question. And that helps elucidate the feelings you're having, the options you're having, the things you're concerned about. And that's a great way. It's like you're shooting arrows of questions at the main enigma that you have, but a variety of them that are different and unique. And that helps you pull out the yarn, the string, to kind of pull apart the ball of yarn that's all confused.
That's incredible. And that's such a powerful tool that we use in coaching, and just seeing your questions are brilliant. Talk to me, because you have these cards also for relationship, right? And to better questions around relationship. What are some questions? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves, first of all. And I think this is really important because if you ask yourself crappy questions, you're going to also ask the relationship around you crappy questions many times. But talk to us a little bit how this changes when you're talking about relationship and better questions around those relationships.
So are you asking me what constructs a good quality question in relationship?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I found for me, when I construct a question, my team, when we construct questions, we usually have 5 aspects that we try to place on the question. At least, 5 or most of them. The first one is don't make them binary. We discussed that.
Right.
I'm talking about, and you're saying, well, why we construct it. Sometimes I'm talking about constructing questions where you're exploring your relationship, where you're stretching it, where you're learning something new, I'm not talking about a conversation where you're into a space where you're making definitive decisions. Yes, no, we do this or that. I'm talking about the questions that elucidate your connection with other people, that give you a sense of deepening your relationship to them, that makes it more resilient, more fulfilled. Those kind of conversations. Have a question that's not binary, because it ends. Yes, no, left, right, done. 2, have questions that are empowering. We talked about the dog chasing the stick. I mean, don't say, why do we fight so much?
Right.
Because they're going to tell you, well, we fight so much because like, instead, you can make it constructive, empowering, saying, what is our biggest challenge in relationship right now? And what do you think it is teaching us? Because now we're going to, okay, well, it's teaching us. Now it's more empowering. We're going to get the answer, but we're going to shift it into something that's empowering. What is it teaching us? Or how is it making us better? Right? How does conflict make us better? Right? Okay. Third one is this is one a lot of people miss, but is make sure that it's a connective question. And what do I mean by connective? Is that it acknowledges the people in the conversation. So, if I ask you, Ilana, what scares you? What scares you the most? And your best friend comes down the street and says, Ilana, what scares you the most? And a stranger comes up and says, what scares you the most? You're going to answer to those three people, your best friend,
Very
me,
different.
and a stranger, the same thing. Snakes or apocalypse or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is. That scares me the most. It's the same answer regardless of who's asking it. What a missed opportunity. Ask a connective question that acknowledges the people in conversation. So I would change it to, Ilana, what do you think scares us both the most? What do you think scares us both the most? And that immediately requires you to acknowledge me and our relationship and what you know of me. Thereby, you would not answer it the same if I asked you that, and if your best friend down the street asked you that, and if a stranger asked you that. Because it acknowledges the unique makeup of our connection.
Right.
So make the question connective. Make sure that it acknowledges like that the two of us are in
The
conversation.
connection.
Yeah, the connection.
Like the
Mm-hmm.
amazing, because that dictates also the intention, that dictates, what we're going through together, and it opens up. That's brilliant.
So like in a business setting, what is the mission of the company? Well, you'll answer that question. Okay. Instead, make it connective. How do you think we both see the mission the same and different?
Right.
And whoever you're speaking to, you're going to answer that differently because it's a different person.
Right.
Right. So, and then the fourth one is, and this is kind of two sides of the same coin, but make the questions connect two disparate ideas. They have to create a pause. It's really helpful when it creates a pause so that you're actually exploring in a new space. It's like between two neural nodes. Connecting two neural nodes for the first time, it takes time. What do I mean? I mentioned before, like, how does conflict make us better? Or what about this for your coaching is, what does earning money cost you?
Ooh.
What does the pursuit of earning money cost you? We don't often. What is your favorite lie you hate telling yourself? Oh, wait. That's not true. I did that wrong. I did that wrong.
No, I get it.
No, let me go back. It was what is your favorite lie you love telling yourself? And what is the truth you hate telling yourself?
You want to hide, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like it's like positive and negative. It's putting two things together that we don't often ask. And the flip side of that coin is putting yourself or someone else in other people's shoes. So Ilana, what's the hardest thing being your friend?
Oof.
Right?
That's a good one.
You have to put yourself, and then check this out. If we're in a conversation and goes, what do you think is the hardest thing about our relationship? For instance, and this is a power play, is that if I say, what is the hardest thing about our relationship? I ask you that. That puts you in a position of power because you're going to say what is factually, right? But by me just adding, do you think or do you feel? That gives it. This is your opinion. This is subjective. So when you're in a conversation, just adding, do you think or do you feel to any kind of conversation is, that's their perspective. That's their experience. That's their unique point of view. And they have the right to that versus saying, hey, why do we fight so much? Which is obviously not constructive, but like, what is the biggest challenge in our relationship versus what do you think is the biggest challenge in our relationship? What is stopping me? What is stopping me from success? What is stopping me from hitting the sales goal? And you tell me. Or versus, what do you think is stopping me from stopping me? Right? So just that player play helps. But going back to things, putting in each other's shoes is really helpful. And the last one is simply, if you can offer the questions as a gift versus an agenda versus an attack, obviously, or as a chess match, then people are more willing to open up and come. And that means that you're asking the questions really out of curiosity. Right?
Absolutely love this. And I think that is key, right, Topaz? And I think that's kind of what you talked about, the intention, right? I mean, if we're coming with a very clear intention of I'm just going to get rid of this and, we're going to suffer through this together and we're going to part ways. It's a very different intention versus I'm going to come with a lot of love and curiosity to see if there's a way to make this better or if there's a way to make this. Am I right? Am
Yeah.
I understanding this?
Yeah, I think the agenda thing is that when anyone comes to you or you go to anyone, and just think about when people come to you and you feel like they already know the answer, or someone asks you a question and you feel like it's not a real sincere question, it's really like it's a chess match. You're not really engaging with them, you're playing chess. So you're not thinking about the answer, you're thinking about what should the answer I give in lieu of the context of out of which that question came. Right? So when you have an intention that's like an open space where you don't know where you're going to end up, which is a vulnerable act, but that vulnerable act invites other vulnerability out. And sometimes that's what we need to have. Often that's what we need to have. Matter of fact, I think we need to have that more. And that's why it's the work that I've been doing.
Right. And I actually want to take you there because I think what you just said is so, so, so critical because I think it's the difference between am I listening to only my questions and what am I saying next, or am I actually present in a conversation? And I want to take you there for a second because you actually had, for me, it was a powerful conversation on your YouTube channel with your father. Your YouTube channel has over almost a million, subscribers. It's called the Skin Deep YouTube channel, and you are not afraid to ask your father some really, really hard questions, which I think a lot of us are shying away from, especially with parents, especially with loved ones. We try to go through life ignoring some of these, but that actually just stretches the wounds. Can you talk a little bit about that, Topaz?
Well, I mean, so I did 2 conversations with my dad, 5 years apart. And actually the first one we did, 10 years ago. But my team members forgot to hit the audio record button. It was like an amateur mistake. So I wasn't able to post that one, but we do have 5 years ago and a year ago. So 5 years apart. And the questions are provided, they have to be surprises. So there's rules in the space of the and, right? Where I can't know what the questions are, and neither can my dad. So our colleague at the time, Rosie, she wrote the questions, and they're beautiful. And the reason that I can't be the one asking the questions in the experience is because then there's no equanimity because then I'm in control because I'm writing the questions. So I have to be just as surprised as my father. That creates a safe space of equanimity. And I think, look, I can't have that conversation with everyone in my family. It's a testament to my father. It's a testament to the relationship I have with my father that we can sit in discomfort and also allow the autonomy of the other person's opinion. And for me, my father is one of the coolest, most interesting, charismatic, unique souls that I've come across in my life. And I wanted to obviously have the conversation with him, but in terms of publicly sharing it, because I'm a very private person, I didn't really want to do that. But then again, if I'm going to talk the talk, I need to walk it too. And if I've been privileged to have all these incredibly courageous people to step into the and share a bit of themselves and their relationships with each other and with the public, I should do the same. And so I did. And fortunately, my father agreed to it as well. But there's 2 conversations. One, 5 years ago 2 weeks before I had life-threatening surgery. And then, last year. Now that, and a lot changed in those 5 years. I became married. I became a father. But yeah, it's, but look, I can't have that conversation with other people in my family, for instance, and not as a judgment call, but, people's ability to sit in discomfort, I think, is also commensurate to the quality of their experience of living. That's my opinion. And I don't mean as a judgment call of better living or worse living. I just mean the depth of the emotion of which you experience in the act of living is deeper. Why? Because you're sitting in more discomfort.
Amazing. So, Topaz, what drives you every day to work on Skiing Deep, to work on the YouTube. I mean, entrepreneurship is hard, right? I mean, there's just a lot of things going into it. I mean, there's books, you have cards, you have things like there's like the entrepreneurship is a big story. What drives you?
I mean, well, humanity. I'm passionate. I love what I do. Um, I get a lot of energy from it. I It was not sustainable for a long time. That's because, and it was not sustainable because I had an unhealthy relationship to money, and I had to do and then basically I had to do a substitution where I substituted. It wasn't money; it was energy. And when I understood it was energy, what that meant for me was, okay, I'm going to put something out into the world. It's a lot of energy. Hopefully, it has enough value in the world such that excess, more energy comes back so that I'm not depleted, but I actually get more energy such that I can put more energy out into the world. Now, that excess energy, some people call profit, right? You invest into something, a service or a product, you put it out into the marketplace, you're offering value to people, you get paid for that, or you get, right? And hopefully get in excess of the energy and the amount that you put in. And with that excess energy, that profit, you then are able to put more out into the world that can offer more value. And when I was able to do that substitution, I was able to move more freely from the vantage point of an artist, because an artist wants to create value all the time, in my opinion, but they're not looking at sustainable value over time. And I was putting a lot of things of value that were winning awards and people loved, but it was not, there was no business model, and not excess energy was coming back. No profit was coming back. So I was getting depleted. And in the end, I couldn't walk the 10, 15-minute walk it took me from my home to my office. And when I was done, I had to jump in the Uber and pay the $10 to take a 5-minute Uber ride back to just put on crickets in my New York, Brooklyn apartment because I was burnt out, man. I was living in New York for 18 years. I was running the startup for 8 at that point, and I was burnt out. And for me, it was making that substitution of like, no. I need to change. It's not just about putting out value and just not getting things back. I need the excess back. That excess is not profit, it's energy. Why? Because I could put more out in the world that I think of value. Because what drives me is not money, it's value. And I mean value in a more artistic sense of putting out there the things that I think are important.
Topaz, can we go there for a second? So one of the things that our listeners will relate to, and I personally had this issue because I had this big heart. I would, volunteer and mentor and advise people and advise companies and go and hustle and do all these things. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I would come home and I was just like, how much money did you make this month? 0. Great job, Ilana. Let's go. Right. And it took me a couple good years to learn how to actually build a business, have a better relationship with money, not being afraid of charging money because it's aligned with value. So can you speak to that for a second, Topaz? Because I think that relationship with money is one of the harder relationships that we have too.
I mean, there's relationship to money, and then there's a relationship to business, right? Because money, you could be a freelancer. I mean, I was a freelancer, director, and cinematographer and editor for years, and I was still dealing with this problem of my relationship to money. But then I started a business, and that also had a whole other relationship to business, which is how do you show up as a leader, right? How do you create the space to enable people to deliver the most, not just for themselves, but also for the sustainability of the enterprise that's collective? Because for many years, for me, the most important thing was each individual's path, but then the actual company itself was not sustainable, and I had to carry it. Right. And then, I'm facing tons of debt, or I'm facing tons of channels, and everyone goes and I'm left holding the ticket in my hand. And, I have children, and like, wait a second. And there was a long journey. It's 11 years. Yeah. And For me, I could never, I think I've worked in 3 offices in my life. One was in university. I had a summer internship at Idea Lab under Bill Gross, and it was really hard for me showing up to an office. As awesome as that place was, it's just like I couldn't be at the same desk from 9 to 5 every day. And then there were 2 directing jobs I had where same thing. You kind of until you were on set, in prep and everything, you're showing up to a desk and you're 9 to 5. And I found myself that I would get the work done in half the time, and the other half the time I was pretending to work. And this is something I can't do. I cannot spend my life pretending to do the job and just kind of search. Like, I can't waste the most important, valuable, finite thing I have is my time, is anyone's time. I can't. So it was really difficult for me. And so for me, it was always like either on my own as an independent contractor, or then 10 years ago, I said, okay, I'm going to start a business. And that's been a long up and down journey. And I think, I've learned so much. I've learned just because it doesn't happen when you want it to happen does not mean it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen on your time frame. So be patient, right? Don't beat yourself up. Be resilient. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There's ebbs. There's ebbs and flows. So when it ebbs, prepare for the flow. When it's flowing, prepare for the ebb. Right? And my dad has a great line. He has 2. I think one of them is probably cliched. He's like, but was like fire, fast, higher, slow. I think that's like a well-known line. And then the other one, maybe it's also well-known. I don't know if you often use, but the one he always told me is like, if you're not growing, you're dying.
I like that. Yeah.
So, it's like, well, we're good here. We're staying here. Well, then you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. And I think and not to be confused with like, what does growing mean? Growing doesn't mean necessarily going up. It might be meaning going deeper. Right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to increase your sales numbers. Maybe it just means increase your EBITDA, increase your efficiency. Or maybe it means, verify your, it does not always mean, I don't, in this kind of manner of like, we have to get bigger and bigger. Because, right?
Because I think your goals also change, right? I mean, your goals change, and maybe your goals is actually to create more balance because you have a new kid, right? Like, it can be many things as long as you are very intentional and strategic about your goals and how you create them, not just the paycheck, but the life that you're creating with it. So
absolutely. I want to jump. I'm going in my head because I just had a conversation with a very good friend of mine, a week ago. And he's a very successful editor, and he's looking for another business of passive income on the side. And so he wanted to pick my brain because he'd seen me do that journey, right, for the last 11 years. And it's interesting. I kind of walked him through the process in my mind, which was interesting because the first time I really shared it, because first time someone asked. But what came up was what you said is like, the first thing is, what is it that you want? What's the question you're asking yourself? Right? I mean, there's many ways you can go off and try to and make money, but to what end? Like, what will you do with that money to do what? Because maybe you have that, It's like the famous thing, like, well, I want to make money so I have free time. Well, right now, do you have free time? I have lots of free time. Well, then what's the problem? If you're working really hard, I have free time, but you have free, like, it's not just that. Is it something else? Why, So number one is, what's the question you're asking yourself? And then number two, for me was the Venn diagram. In terms of what career path, what should start a business and what degree is, where do you feel you get energy from, and where do you feel you offer value? Where do those two overlap? And then anyways, I continue him down on a journey and business model, blah, 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 blah. But it comes like at the end of the day, like where someone else is saying, hey, we're doing really well. We want to grow this exponentially and then make an exit. Okay, great. Why? Well, no, but it's like, wait, many of us are finding ourselves answering questions that are given to us by our friends, our culture, our parents, and actually not of ourselves. You want to grow this to be exponential so you can, why? Is that because the line you hear on social media and that's what everyone else is doing? Wait, What is it that you want? What is a question you're asking yourself that gives you the answer of what it is you want? And then let's shape your business around
Right.
that, right?
And I love that, Topaz, because I think we're putting a lot of focus in Leap Academy and the programs themselves to really ask these questions. Like, and how do you find clarity? How do you find where you want to go? What are your must-haves? What's critical for you? And again, some people are driven by legacy and thought leadership and fame and freedom. Whatever it is for you, nothing is bad as long as you're willing to look in the mirror and say, this is what I'm chasing. Now let's go get it.
Exactly. It's like you might have the same answer to two different questions, but the energy, how it flows through the system is different because you asked a different question.
Absolutely agree.
Example, I have a brother, super talented musician, genius level musician. For many years, he was making his music. Why? Because he had to prove himself to his dad. Oh, that sounds familiar. That was exactly me. Same thing. Okay, so you're making music, and this is just a very simple example, but it might as well have been me making films. Same thing. To prove yourself to your father. Okay, so imagine that energy and the needs and the emotion going into it, of the struggle. If it doesn't succeed, then it's a reflection of how, okay, I'm making films, he's making music, trying to prove yourself to your father. Okay, that's a lot of energy that's not being really efficiently used. Then you ask the different questions. You know what? What is it that I love? I love making films. I love making music. Why? Because I love how it shines on people. Great. So do the same thing, but ask a different question. Not how do I prove myself to my father, but how do I do more of what I love? You're still making music, you're still making films, but it's coming from a different place. It's coming through a different system. If energy flow is efficiently flowing through the system, so you have more energy to do the output.
Incredible. And I think usually we end up with kind of like, what's your advice to your younger self? But I feel that's probably one of the, the interesting advice from you. What is there anything else that comes to you that you would catch yourself and tell yourself and want to make sure that our listeners are getting from you?
One of our questions that we ask,
self, right?
Yeah, is that if you could go back to any point in time, what would you tell yourself? Like, where would you go? When would you go?
Right.
And what would you tell yourself? Because it's different, right? It's right. Different.
It is.
And the other interesting question is like, okay, if the Topaz or the Ilana 5 years from now was here right now, what would she tell you? From the future, forget the past.
Right.
What would the Ilana from the future tell you right now?
I love that question, by the way. And I think she would tell me that I'm badass and kick ass and be patient.
Exactly. She'd tell you, relax, right? You're doing great. You're doing wonderful, and take care, and like I would be like, Topaz, don't stop flossing. Keep flossing. Take care of and more green tea, Topaz, please, like.
I love this. Yes. But where would you go back in time?
Oh, man. I think one day I'm going to die of nostalgia. Since having children, it's much better. But before I had children, nostalgia was like very hard for me. So that's why when you asked me to go back, probably many points. I mean, I'd like to say I don't have many regrets, but I do have the thing that I haven't made the most. I haven't made the most of my time in terms of reading as many books, paying attention to as many of the beautiful things in this world, like food and art and music and nature. And I'm just I wish I studied philosophy at Oxford and Berkeley. I wish I I read more of the books. I wish I spent more time but then again, doesn't everyone say like the youth is wasted on the young? Like, you're young, you have all this energy, you can, but yeah, I would, I guess if I wish I spent more time reading the riches of humanity, the literature, the music, the books, and really plug that into my brain more. And so because if I did that, I would have much more informed opinions now, or positions now, or God knows how that would have shaped my outlook on life and what I could share here with you now.
Incredible. Topaz.
What would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself?
I would tell
'Cause
myself, so first of all, ask more help. I
ah,
was the person that would never ask for help no matter what. I thought that I'm very strong if I persevere through things. And the truth is I just moved slower. If I had known a tenth of what I know now, I know we would have been $1 billion company by now. But
mm,
so for me, but again, I think this is the muscle I needed to build to be
sure.
where I am today. And I'm really, really proud, Inc. 500. Like, I'm really proud of what we achieved. And I wish I had asked for help a lot earlier in my career. So for
Mm.
me, that would be the big one.
It's
Yeah.
funny you say that because when as soon as you said the $1 billion thing, what hit me was like the idea that billion, 100,000, 1,000,000, seven, eight, whatever. These are just numbers. These are digits, right? But they represent something deeper. They represent what
They
you become.
represent lives, life
The experience
change
you
in the
become.
life. Yeah.
But the life is like, what are you learning? Like you said, like
Yeah.
I couldn't have, but I had to learn the things I had to learn. Like, so it's like, it's a signpost, but actually what it is, it's like a becoming. Like, in order to be in that place, you're learning things and you're becoming. At the end of the day, it's a number, but what is not just a number is the things you've learned, the relationships you've built, what you've
Yeah.
become as a human. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think for me, it's also life change experiences that you're open to. Like suddenly, like, I
Mm.
don't know, 2 weeks ago, I, gave a lecture in front of Richard Branson, his son, and his nephew. I mean, it's a
Wow.
pinch me moment. 10 years ago, did I ever see that coming? No, like that wasn't even in the
Wow.
dreams, right? So for me, it's one of those moments that what else is available if
Mm,
I just do more, get
right.
more done, create the incredible team that I have, and I'm so grateful for them and what we're achieving and all the hundreds of clients a year that we have. And I'm saying to myself, how much more is possible? You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's one small step at a time because we're just impatient people.
Beautiful.
Right. But thank you so much for this incredible. Oh my God, I took so many notes. I was just like, this is awesome. Thank you for sharing all these like beautiful questions. I do believe so much of it is the questions that we create for ourselves. And that determines it's a GPS and it's such a powerful GPS that we're not leveraging enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just thank you for sharing all these beautiful insights and tips.
No, thank you. Thank you for the space, Ilana. Thank you for the time.
More episodes that you're going to love are right around the corner. So definitely make sure to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, who in your life should see this today? Do share this with them. This will inspire and help those you care about and helps us continue to bring amazing guests. And I will see you there.